Alright, hello everyone and welcome to AEW Discussion. I'm your host and AEW enthusiast Dougie Doug. In today's episode I'm going to be discussing All Out 2023 edition. And this card for All In, this pay-per-view, well, it didn't have the highest expectations going into it. The card was missing some key stars, and the Chicago crowd was certainly still reeling from the announcement of CM Punk's firing. However, give credit to the Chicago crowd. It is one of the better crowds for AEW as they rallied, and the roster, I give credit to the AEW personnel too. They rallied as well and put on a motivated performance throughout the night. A night of many highs, and ultimately, due to those many highs, it led to an incredible show. One of the best AEW has produced. I would say this might just be AEW's top pay-per-view of the year. We're not quite at the end of the year. We got a new one coming up in October. I'm blanking on the name at the moment. And then there's Full Gear. So we're not quite towards the finish line just yet. But it's going to be pretty hard for the next pay-per-view the bar. All In certainly set a high bar. So we'll see how the next one does. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get into some takeaways from the night. There was a lot of great action, so I was trying to figure out how to do this episode. You know what, we're going to talk about 4 individuals whose performances I felt like were worth talking about. So, with that, we're going to start off with Samoa Joe. Now, Samoa Joe versus Shane Taylor was a relatively short match, about 6 minutes, and Joe would successfully defend his Ring of Honor Television Championship against Shane Taylor. So the match, it was a pretty good match. Would have been nice if it went 10 minutes, because these guys were certainly, throwing their weight around in a very entertaining manner. But I think the biggest takeaway was what happened before the match, and that was Joe shoving MJF like it was NXT. And I think we all know what that means. The next challenger for the AEW Whatever Championship is Samoa Joe, and Joe is a monster performer unlike anyone else. He's been a workhorse for AEW and Ring of Honor as the television champion. No one has come off as a more legitimate threat to, anybody in professional wrestling, and he looks like a guy who can beat anyone. And while he did come out on the losing end of a feud with CM Punk, he should be able to turn things around pretty quickly, and he certainly did. Certainly he's on the right track, getting a win here and going after the AEW World Title is even more a way to stay on, continue to get back on track. Joe has already played a key role in the stories surrounding MJF and Adam Cole. You think about Roderick Strong and his neck brace, which don't know why it's still a thing, but it's kind of entertaining that it is. And also it was Samoa Joe that put Roderick Strong in that neck brace, and that injury has been one of the reasons that Cole and Strong's friendship has fallen apart, and it probably will play a key role in the upcoming number 1 contenders tournament beginning this week on Dynamite. That tournament should include Joe, and while Strong could face MJF, he could win the tournament. Also, a rematch of Adam Cole is inevitable at some point. No one would be better suited to face the AEW champion at this moment than Samoa Joe. But MJF does have a bad neck, so would he be able to survive? Time will tell on that one. And then Bryan Danielson, still with his arm wrapped up, clearly not 100%, but he says, screw it, I'm going to sign up for a strap match anyway, and he does. And he wins said strap match against Ricky Starks, once again proving why he is one of the greats in professional wrestling. And many certainly have claimed the title to, greatest of all time, but, Danielson makes a case as to, and I know WWE likes to tout John Cena as the greatest of all time, and there's an argument to be made for him. But when you think about the argument for Danielson to be crowned as greatest of all time, think about how long he's been doing it at a high level. On September 5th, 2021, the American Dragon arrived in AEW, and over the last 2 years, he hasn't really had very many misses, if any at all. His latest battle with Ricky Starks made absolutely bigger star than he was coming in. It was one of the greatest strap matches in wrestling history. Danielson was working this match with his arm still bandaged up. It is surreal to think that even he could be cleared, that he could even be cleared in time for a match like this. However, in spite of it all, the American Dragon showed up and showed out, and will continue to do so until, well, I guess he can't, basically. And then Konosuke Takeshita had probably his biggest match so far of his AEW career at All Out against Kenny Omega, and he wins that match and does so in a relatively clean manner. Very little Don Callis interference, which is a great thing. And I think it's safe to say with a signature win over a guy like Kenny Omega that he's now a made man. And Omega could have easily won this match and got his revenge against Don Callis, and instead, in a competitive back and forth battle, Callis, well, they didn't have to do much to help Takeshita get to the finish line. The Japanese upstart defeated the cleaner of a series of knees to the face. Simply put, he hit Omega until he could not get up. And this was a decisive victory in the final step in Takeshita's rise to stardom. He can now go after any top name or championship, and believably well. And yeah, I think this is where I was talking about him being a made man, is that he is in a good position to go after any title or any competitor and look credible and look like he can win the match. It's likely that Omega versus Takeshita continues, even if the cleaner would take his win back. There's no taking away this great match and this win away from him, though. So he's already got the credibility. So his credibility is in a good spot right now, and very curious to see what the follow-up is. But yeah, if you were to throw this man in a title program, I would take him seriously as a challenger. And then lastly, Orange Cassidy. He did lose the AEW International Championship, but he will go down in AEW history as one of its greatest champions. And Cassidy's reign went on for 327 days, and in that time he defended it 32 times. An unreal pace that led to some of the best matches from AEW over this last year. Freshly Squeezed has always carried himself with his signature nonchalance. He came into the company as a strange comedy act. However, over the years and with each performance, he proves himself as one of the best in the business. He went from the ultimate slacker to the ultimate workhorse. All Out was a test of sorts for Cassidy. Competed in the main event for the first time in his career, and even though he lost the match, he succeeded. He passed the test. MJF, he's been a great world champion, still is a great world champion, but no one has been more elevated in a singles title run than Freshly Squeezed. He showed what he could do and carried Dynamite time and time again as champion, and there may never be another run as special as this one in AEW. So full credit to Cassidy. Shout out to him. What a run. And take some time off, dude. You have earned your rest. And looking forward to seeing what he does next when he comes back. So in conclusion, All Out was a hit. After everything that happened with CM Punk over last week, this is the kind of show AEW needed to get back on track. There were memorable matches and moments, a few star-making performances, and a few surprising outcomes. Orange Cassidy and Jon Moxley told a good in-ring story, but Omega and Takeshita had, from a technical perspective, match of the night. All In is one of AEW's signature events, and the struggle crowd always shows up ready to make its voice heard. Case in point, Miro versus Hobbs with the meat chant. I mean, that was a great match, but it was even better with the crowd involvement. Now that Moxley has the international title, it's going to be interesting to see how that title reign plays out. Does he defend it as often as OC, or is he going to make people earn title shots more often? My guess, earn those title shots. And with that will conclude this episode of AEW Discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.